they're paying a running back. I know that's controversial these days, and I know that the Taylor Colts thing, there seemed like there was a lot of reports
Yeah.
about that situation. So what surprised you the most when you saw the news? Was it Taylor taking the contract with the Colts, like knowing what the relationship was perceived to be there? Or was it the Colts paying a running back? Zach Moss, he's looked pretty good. You can get a running back cheap. Do you want to which side reuniting with the other surprised you the most?
I my main surprise was the Colts going out and paying him because it seemed
Mm.
like good old Uncle Jim and everybody else in that front office was like on the standpoint of, oh, we're not going to overpay for a running back, the most injury prone position in NFL football. We're not going to go out and overpay this guy. And then it seems like 4 weeks later he comes off of IR and they give him the deal he wanted. So that's kind of what I was surprised about. But at the same time, yeah, you like you said, Jonathan Taylor was with a sore spot with the Colts. He was injured. He was not injured. He wanted to play. He didn't want to play. But like at the end, like what he wanted was his contract extension, and then he ended up getting it after he came off of IR. So I feel like it makes more sense for him to take that deal and sign with the Colts. But I was kind of confused on the Colts standpoint when for so long they took the side of not wanting to pay a lot for a running back, and then they did exactly that.
So I didn't expect myself to like be in this position because I just think from like a general team building standpoint, like I would try to consider myself like, smart guy if I was like, hey, can I put myself in this position and make these moves? I would consider myself a smart guy. And the smart thing to do right now, is, or at least what the consensus thing is to just not value these running backs and to, not pay them to the second contract, but to not like draft these guys high as well, because that's been another thing that's been, controversial and Dre's. It's like it's a free agency thing, but it's also a draft thing. Their value, just the running back value in general, has been decreasing. And Jonathan Taylor wasn't a first round pick; he was a second round pick. So it's like he's great value, and he was even if you don't necessarily, I mean, you'd want to re-sign your second round pick, but he wasn't a top 10 guy. But I think just some stuff's been happening this season, and I think I'm back in on these running backs. I don't know what's happening, but just I went back and looked through the drafts the last 10 years for running backs picked in the top 10. And most of the running backs picked in the top 10 were in like that golden age, 15 to 18, like that 4 year stretch. But as 2015, so you got Todd Gurley goes number 10. And Pro Football Reference has this stat in drafts called weighted career value. It's just like a number to assign to try to gauge, how good the players in the drafts were. So Gurley was the 10th pick. He's in weighted value. He's the 8th best player in the draft. In 2016, Zeke, he was the 4th pick. In career weighted value, he's 5th overall from the draft. And that's a little bit lofty. There's definitely some guys in the list that you probably would rather have, but statistically, he still is able to produce where he was picked. The 2017 draft, you've got McCaffrey as the 8th pick and 6th in career value. Leonard Fournette was the 4th pick that year. He dropped all the way to 24th, so he has the biggest margin. But he is the only guy of all these guys I'm going to name that won the Super Bowl and was like a major running back on a Super Bowl team, big playoff minutes, really stepped up. And then in 2018, you've got Saquon going number 2, which is just a pick that has been, looked back and criticized time and time again, even though Saquon is as good as he is. And the thing that's really hurt his weighted value is he's been hurt and the injuries have really cost him. But if you go weighted value per game, he's 2nd in the draft. So all of these guys where it's just the guys that kind of started this concern for the running back boom, teams, they drafted him too high. They went out and they paid him too much money. Well, all of these guys did kind of perform up to their where their value was in the draft. And Taylor, I know again they didn't draft him there, but I just these running backs I think can prove that they're worth their value and they're paying Taylor right now. So his contract is 3 years, $42 million. It's $14 million a year. The receivers in that range, if you were going to pay a wide receiver in that range, the guys in the market for that, that gets you Christian Kirk. Okay, Christian Kirk's pretty good. Allen Robinson, Cortland Sutton, Hunter Renfrow. I mean, I'm not even naming just the ones that I want. Like, these are the guys. Deontay Johnson, Tyler Lockett, Mike Evans. Like, I'm sorry. I would just rather have Jonathan Taylor. So I get the running back thing has been controversial these last couple of years, but I think it's swung to the point where are these guys actually like, has the league gone too far? Because Taylor at $14 million to me, I mean, as a weapon, this is a steal.
I agree with you, and like the whole running back market value is just kind of out of shock. Like, because you see, like the wide
It's gone
receivers
too
that
far.
you name, like I would take Jonathan Taylor out of probably anybody on that list, especially Allen Robinson. For him to make 14 million a year is it's fucking crazy to me because
Those are
John,
all
yeah,
of the
he's
wide receivers. Those are all of the wide receivers making 12 to 18 million dollars a year.
when Jonathan Taylor's healthy, he's the best weapon on the Colts offense. He's probably the second best running back in football. So for him to only be making 14 million a year compared to wide receivers who make literally quadruple that and quarterbacks who make pretty much the same amount as wide receivers these days it's a steal. It's very much a steal.
And when I said that, there's been some stuff that's been happening in the league, like I wonder now, is this like actually how you build a team? Is actually do you build it around your run game? Because the pass game, we're in a pass revolution, the quarterback game, all that stuff is happening. But like, just look over in the NFC right now. Who's on top? The Niners with Purdy. They have McCaffrey, dominant offensive and dominant defensive lines. The Eagles with Jared Goff, and I know Montgomery may not be, and Gibbs may not have the highest standing in the league, but they're just what they're doing with their run game and their offensive lines. The Eagles with Hurts and their O-lines and run game. Even what McDaniels has done with the Dolphins and Tua and sort of revitalizing him. And that's even still, I know they have the receivers, but McDaniels is from that Shanahan tree. That's still kind of built around the run game. So pass game, I know it is the revolutionary thing, but I think the thing that Shanahan has kind of brought to light anyway, the thing that he's kind of exposed, or maybe not exposed the right word, but the thing that he's shown is, the pass game is, I think, more effective because it's a better, or at least it was a way to get your good athletes into more space. And what Shanahan has done is he's like all of these wide runs and just the angles that he attacks the run game. He's been able to create space in the run game. And it seems like, where you're not like bottling up, like they still obviously run dives and like up the middle, but just the schemes that he's able to employ in the space that he's able to create for these running backs. Like if you're able to if you're able to have that on your team, your quarterback Purdy, like it's so much easier for Purdy to hand the ball off, set your team up for play action. You can stay on game script as well, because if you have a bad first down or whatever, you can get 4 to 5 yards on first or second down with your run game and set yourself up for third down. Is this just like an NFC specific thing with all these teams competing against each other, or is this actually a better way to develop and bring along like a young quarterback?
I think the run game is definitely like something you should set up your offense around. And like when it comes to football, it's simple fact. The run game opens up the passing game. To have a good passing game, you need a good running game. In our age and this year in the NFL, the only two offenses that I would say confidently that they don't need a running game to open up their passing game would be the Chiefs and the Dolphins, just because they're already so established with throwing the ball. But
Yeah.
you look at the Niners, they
And
they
the
probably give
Dolphins still do
McCaffrey.
it.
Yeah, they still do it. Like Devon Achane is the second best fantasy running back in football. Granted, that's kind of padded against their game against the Broncos.
Mm.
But even this last week, he rushed for 2 touchdowns and he got hurt. Mostert has 7 rushing touchdowns on the season. They have 15 combined rushing touchdowns out of the two of them this year.
And the Chiefs are always trying to find it.
Yeah, and like you look at Pacheco, who's probably like the meanest runner in the NFL. He's always going to end up with like 60 plus yards, at least 12 carries. He's about to run for 150 and 3 touchdowns against the Broncos on Thursday. I'm not excited for that.
Spoiling your lineup for the end of the week.
Right. So, yeah, you have to to establish your run game is one of the most important parts of your offense because, like you said earlier, it opens up the play action. I think a team that is a great example of this is the Lions. This year they're giving Montgomery the ball 15 plus times a game. Gibbs have been hurt, but even when he's healthy, he's still getting the ball probably 5 times, maybe 10 on a good day. And then as soon as they get that run game going, they go right to the play action. And the big target when that is so far has been Sam Laporta. You run those play action passes. It seems like every single play action pass, he's open 30 yards down the field. And so far, Jared Goff has just been able to really run that offense how they want to do it. They open up the passing game really well when they give Montgomery the ball 32 times in a game. So I agree with you. You need to build your offenses and your teams around these running backs. And with that, it's gonna come out to be a higher market value price as the NFL goes on with how important the run game is.
It's if we were just like talking to people and we're like, ooh, modern NFL 2023, like would you rather have a spread offense or like a power run offense? I think most people would be like, well, you want the spread offense, but I mean, the Bills are obviously maybe the best team in the AFC, but the last couple of years, they haven't really had the run game. Well, now they actually have James Cook in there, and he's vitalized their offense. You've got the Chargers, who can't really do anything without Eckler. Like for as amazing as Herbert is, like that's another example of just an offense that they don't have a run game. They can put up the points, but they become one-dimensional at the end of games. Vikings, kind of the same thing as well, where you've got phenomenal receivers, but no run game. And now all of a sudden you're relying on Kirk Cousins to do too much at the end of games, and you're turning the ball over and you're doing all this stuff. Like Anthony Richardson is maybe one of the most extreme cases of developmental quarterback. Like I think he's much farther along than a lot of people were giving him credit for. He's not Mitchell Trubisky, but he still has a long way to go. And if we're spending $14 million on a weapon, I would just rather have Jonathan Taylor over a guy like Tyler Lockett. Like I think this is a good deal, and I think it's even a better deal, like we're saying, considering the fact that they have the young quarterback and they need to bring him along. So anybody out there that's criticizing the running back thing, I don't want to hear it. I'm glad Jonathan Taylor's back.
I agree. They've got him locked in through the 2026 season. You've got Zach Moss, whose contract is expiring after this year. I would not be surprised if they try to re-sign him to like a 1 or 2 year deal just to lock in the both of them. Granted, JT was on a snap count this last game, but Zach Moss really like threw himself out there. I think he was he was a little pissed off, be like, they just paid this fucking guy. He's gonna take my job. I'm gonna show them why they need to keep me. And with a 72-yard rushing touchdown, I think it was, he ended up with, what was it? I want to say 23 carries, but I don't remember off the top of my head. Over 100
like 30
rushing
fantasy
yards.
points this week.
The first 100-yard rusher the Titans have allowed in like weeks. I think it was like 7 or 8 weeks. Is insane. And it just shows that the Colts, they have very
165.
Yeah, 23 carries, 165, 2 touchdowns against a Titans D line who's probably a top 5 D line in the NFL is where I would put them.
Well, the Colts O-line is back. I know the Colts O-line was bad for a while with Luck, and then Luck retired and they brought in Quentin Nelson and it got good all of a sudden, but they had no quarterback. And they bring in Matt Ryan last year. They have no quarterback. They have no O-line. It was pretty disastrous. But the center has been phenomenal this year. Quentin Nelson, of course, is amazing. So I'm sure that helped. But yeah, Zach Moss looked really good. The unfortunate thing with this, obviously, if this is a beneficial move for Anthony Richardson, well, unfortunately, Anthony Richardson is out, and he
Yeah.
just had a shoulder injury. And I don't know if you've heard anything about this. Do you have sources on the shoulder injury? Because what I saw from, I guess, from Rap, we won't shout out the ESPN guy. We'll shout out Rappaport because that's our guy. The stuff that I was seeing was like the type of sprain and that this was. This is like the worst version of that sprain, like a grade 3 AC joint, I think
That's
is
what
what
I
they're
was
calling it.
seeing. Yeah.
Something like that. The thing that I didn't see was if it had involved the labrum, because I believe a labrum tear, oh, well, tear anything is not good, but a labrum tear, and especially a labrum tear in your throwing shoulder, is
Takes a long time to recover from.
probably done for the year at that point. If he tears that, and it sounded the thing that I couldn't understand was if grade 3 meant tear or not, because some places were seeming like it was saying it was, and some people were seeming like there wasn't, and there is like multiple tendons in the shoulder, so it's which one is it? But I know they're saying like a month right now. But if this is the worst version of that injury, and if it is in his throwing shoulder, I wouldn't be shocked if we didn't see him again this year. Just because again, he is a developmental guy, and I think the Colts want to be really, really careful with him. But is this what it's just going to be now with the Anthony Richardson experiment, or if that's just been like two really unfortunate things to start the year? Like he has the concussion where he doesn't even get pulled out of, like he's not like concussed when he gets it. The spotter pulls him out, and then he has to sit out the next week as well. And then this is, he's running, he's not sliding, whatever, but he falls on his shoulder. It could really happen to anybody. And I feel like guys just hit him harder as well, too, because he's bigger. Yeah. So I don't know. Is this what it's going to be? This is what I'm going to have to deal with?
I don't know. I don't think it's what it's going to be. I'd say there's two positives to take out of this injury. And let me tell you, number one is through the first 5 weeks of the season and the games that he's played, you can tell he's a very aggressive QB. And when it comes to his aggressiveness, he reminds me of Josh Allen, how he'll get down and dirty in the running game, and he's not a bad passer as well. He's been throwing the ball pretty well. And then the second thing is, if you have a guy like Gardner Minshew as your backup, who came in and went 11 for 14, 155 yards, did not turn the ball over. If you can rely on your backup to play very efficient like he did in that second half of the game when he was in there, I wouldn't be upset, especially with Jonathan Taylor coming back now. Michael Pittman's been a very good option throughout this whole year. He's been pretty consistent when it comes to yards. Backup running back like Zach Moss, who we just talked about. I wouldn't be, if we don't see Richardson the rest of the year, I still wouldn't count out the Colts. I think this division's very wide open. Gardner Minshew is very efficient, and he's proven to be a good starting quarterback in the NFL before. So I wouldn't count out the Colts quite yet.
I mean, everything does, like we said with Taylor, does in some way apply to Minshew, because this team is still going to have a run game, a good O-line. DeForest Buckner and the defensive line and just the defensive front seven in general has been really, really solid this year. So they're going to be a good team. They should probably be winning the division, except for the fact that the Jaguars were playing a game this week where the team they were playing, it was their home game, but that team had to fly across the country, and the Jaguars had already been, there for. If the Jags go to Buffalo, I think the Colts are in front of the AFC South right now.
I
think it's inevitable.
I 100%
They should be winning the division.
The Jags own the United Kingdom. The Jags own any game overseas, whether it's the Germany games, the Mexico games. Especially
Mexico's not overseas.
Well, not Mexico, but out of the country. So like the Germany games and the UK games, like they have to play.
It takes a long way to Mexico.
Yeah, when you fly to Cancun, you go over water. So
Dan just says, when I take my private jet around the whole world, I mean, that's flying overseas.
When I tell
right?
my butler Antonio to call up the pilot and I'm going to Cancun, I'm flying over the bay.
The other thing that Richardson injury does is, as we've talked about, how deep the quarterback class is. I want to make it clear, Richardson is my guy. But, to have a little like insurance is never a bad thing, just in case of an injury. I know Gardner Minshew is already a cheap option, but drafting a quarterback late is like another good way to. I just is the DJ Uyunglele to the Colts late swing. Keep him there, dash him away. Just in case,
we say his name every week.
We're the number one. We're the number one DJ Uyunglele pod.
Number one.
Number one
State
DJ
fans,
Uyunglele
if you listen
show.
to this.
I know they have to be happy. Nobody else is a Michigan fan. I think I'm the number one Michigan fan DJ Uyunglele supporter. I think I have to be.
Yeah.
I really hope I am because 7th round. Let's do it.